MSMEs play an important role in enhancing economic development and poverty alleviation in Uganda. Not only in Uganda, but also in Africa. You'll agree that the characteristics of MSMEs are similar across Africa. This sector has significant potential to spur overall economic development and take a leading role in poverty eradication, employment, and wealth creation, as well as improving the quality of life of the African people. MSMEs in Uganda constitute about 90% of the private sector in terms of both formal and informal composition. They are mainly in trade, agro-processing, and small-scale manufacturing sectors. However, there remains the challenge of their high mortality rate, with at least 1/3 of the startups do not see their first birthday. 80% of them are in urban areas, and they contribute to 75% of the national GDP and employ approximately 2.5 million people. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the enormous benefits created by MSMEs, they face the following challenges, which include lack of systematic and internationally recognized standards and quality framework, inadequate accessibility to financing, lack of appropriate training courses, low awareness and appreciation for the need to meet the required technical regulations and other trade requirements in order to trade across borders. You find them smuggling, and yet they have the rights, but because they are not even aware of those rights. Poor storage facilities and packaging materials, poor infrastructure, low technologies, weak or at times no links to the larger multinational firms that could assist them in value addition, and so on. The list is endless. Ladies and gentlemen, this meeting provides us with the opportunity for us to come up with measures and proposals that could assist our countries to tackle the above challenges head-on. There is need to find sustainable solutions that will spur these MSMEs to engage in intra-trade and hence stimulate the overall economic development for Africa. It is through trade and not aid that we develop Africa, and more so intra-Africa trade. Emphasis should be laid on the support for the youth-based MSMEs. We always talk about women, we always talk about general MSMEs. This time around, let us particularly look at the youth, because they are the leaders of tomorrow.
In the past, months, our own ministers, our own leaders, the policymakers have been very active in dealing with the issues of regional, integration, and that's why you will note those reports. And I do hope that those reports will provide the guideposts for the Council of Ministers meeting. It will make the work of the ministerial meeting easy. But let me also mention that some of these sectoral ministerial meetings have taken place so fast that when I had a bureau meeting of the Ministers for Science, Technology and Innovation in Lusaka the other week, I observed that in less than 2 months they had met twice, and that the bureau of that committee had met 3 times, and that they have also now come up with some landmark decisions which have been made by the Council, the establishment of the Science Innovation Council, and also the Council will be approving the establishment of science parks, the centers of excellence, etc. And let me take this opportunity to commend those member countries that have these designated facilities for even going to the extent of allocating budgetary resources from their own budgets in order to implement these programs. And this is how programs should be implemented, because ownership at the national level, even when you have a regional program, it's important that the country that hosts the facility also integrates this in the budget. So I'm just mentioning that as an example of the work that has been done. But let me also hastily say here that we are also going to have 5 technical reports that we'll be considering substantively and making recommendations to the Council of Ministers. In addition to that, you'll also be looking at the progress reports by the Secretariat with respect to the state of play of regional integration. And let me say this very briefly, because I'll be very, very brief this morning, that regarding the progress reports, you will note that these progress reports are telling us what the state of play of the implementation of various programs is at the moment. But most fundamentally, you'll also be having a standalone report, which will be the report on the status of transposition or domestication of council and authority decisions. You recall that in the meeting in Lilongwe last year, the Council of Ministers decided that the matter of transposition should be placed high on the COMESA agenda, and the authority ratified that decision. And pursuant to that decision, the exercise is now being carried out. The report will be before you. Let me also say that the issue of domestication of council decision, which in a very simple sense means taking ownership of those programs, not only through legislation but also through putting the necessary institutional mechanism, structures, and also a budgetary allocation for that it is not unique to COMESA, because it has also affected other regional organizations, particularly the European Union, which in 1986, after many years of implementing the Union Integration Project, decided to take stock of where the EU countries were, and they recruited Professor Cencini, the Italian, who headed that. It was under Commissioner Jacques Delors, who was then the head of the Commission. And it is interesting, if I were to share with you very briefly the outcome of that exercise, that they found that over the years, since the Treaty of Rome in 1958, that the European Union, or Commission as it was then, Economic Community as then, had more than 500,000 decisions, out of which only 30% had been implemented. And this is why they came up with the single market under the Maastricht Treaty in 1992. So I'm mentioning this to say, don't despair if the scorecard doesn't look good. This is the nature of the beast. This is the nature of regional integration.